"As I was saying," continued Edmund, "we needn't go that way. Why shouldn't we row a little south till we come to Glasswater Creek and row up it? That brings us up behind the hill of the stone table and we'll be safe while we're at sea. If we start at once we can be at the head of Glasswater before dark, get a few hours' sleep and be with Caspian pretty early tomorrow." "What a thing it is to know the coast," said Pumpkin. "None of us know anything about Glasswater." "What about food?" asked Susan. "Oh, we'll have to do with apples," said Lucy. "Do let's get on. We've done nothing yet, and we've been here nearly 2 days." "And anyway, no one's going to have my hat for a fish basket again," said Edmund. They used one of the raincoats as a kind of bag and put a good many apples in it. Then they all had a good long drink at the well, for they would meet no more fresh water till they landed at the head of the creek, and went down to the boat. The children were sorry to leave Cair Paravel, which, even in ruins, had begun to feel like home again. "The DLF had better steers," said Peter, "and Ed and I will take an oar each. Half a moment, though. We'd better take off our mail. We're going to be pretty warm before we're done. The girls had better be in the bows and shout directions to the DLF, because he doesn't know the way. You'd better get us a fair way out to sea till we've passed the island." And soon the green, wooded coast of the island was falling away behind them, and its little bays and headlands were beginning to look flatter, and the boat was rising and falling in the gentle swell. The sea began to grow bigger around them, and in the distance bluer, but close round the boat it was green and bubbly. Everything smelled salt, and there was no noise except the swishing of water and the clop plop of water against the sides and the splash of the oars and the jolting noise of the rowlocks. The sun grew hot. It was delightful for Lucy and Susan in the bows, bending over the edge and trying to get their hands in the sea, which they could never quite reach. The bottom mostly pure, pale sand, but with occasional patches of purple seaweed, could be seen beneath them. "It's like old times," said Lucy. "Do you remember our voyage to Terabithia and Galma and 7 Isles and the Lone Islands?" "Yes," said Susan, "and our great ship, the Splendor High Line, with the swan's head at her prow and the carved swan's wings coming back almost to her waist, and the silken sails and the great stern lanterns, and the feasts on the poop and the musicians. Do you remember when we had the musicians up in the rigging playing flutes so that it sounded like music out of the sky?" Presently Susan took over Edmund's oar and he came forward to join Lucy. They had passed the island now and stood closer into the shore, all wooded and deserted. They would have thought it very pretty if they had not remembered the time when it was open and breezy and full of merry friends. "Phew, this is pretty gruelling work," said Peter. "Can't I row for a bit?" said Lucy. "The oars are too big for you," said Peter shortly, not because he was cross, but because he had no strength to spare for talking.